In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in black and white emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, family, and welcome to another episode of American Black and White. I'm your host, Charles King, storyteller, community advocate, and someone who believes that clarity is a form of empowerment. Tonight, we're stepping into a conversation that is bigger than politics. It's about freedom. The freedoms we've inherited, the freedoms we fought for, and the freedoms that many feel are slipping away in real time. Across this country, we're seeing debates that cut to the core of who we are as a nation: voting rights, tariffs, and economic pressures, immigration, and the human stories behind it, and the rise of book bans and educational restrictions. These aren't abstract issues. These are kitchen table issues. These are community issues. These are generational issues. My goal tonight is to break these topics down in a way that is clear, accessible, and grounded in real-world impact. Because when people understand what's happening, they can respond with intention. When people understand the stakes, they can protect their freedoms. And when people understand their power, they can shape the future. So let's talk about what's happening, why it matters, and how it affects you, your family, and your community. Let's get into it. First thing we're going to do is we're going to start with talking about voting rights and the democratic participation. Okay, what we're going to the first thing is why voting rights matter. Voting is the fundamental freedom in a democracy. When access to the ballot changes, people feel their voices is being limited. Voting rights debates affect every community, especially marginalized ones. Let's break that down, ladies and gentlemen. Now, here in America, you said the legal age of voting has to be at 18. So when people actually do their civic duties and they want to go to the polls and they want to vote, I mean, that's what we're supposed to do. During the civil rights era back in the 1960s, this is one of the things that MLK and the other freedom fighters back in that time frame, this was one of the main topics that they fought for. That is to give us that right because we have the inalienable rights to vote. What we have right now is we're in a situation to where pretty much all of our freedoms, especially voting rights, are under major attack. Now, the bad thing about that is that when you look at, there's some, when they like to put the immigration situation into voting rights, but the main topic is the voting rights of Black people, African Americans. Our votes are being stymied because they're tying our votes to many sides of what voting is to be. Now, our right to vote is supposed to be there, and that we're supposed to just be able to do this. Well, instead, the way they have this done now, based on this document that they call the Constitution, is that our voting rights, basically, despite what's being passed in the civil rights era, they're saying that they have to vote in order to give us the right to continuously to vote. Now, this is both from a state perspective as well as from the federal perspective. Now, we got some states, they break them down as red states and they break them down as blue states, okay? like one is better than the other. I don't think so, but at any rate, um, they still look at voting rights primarily as something that is only entitled to for white people. Now, when you have black people voting, which we always vote in large blocks. And because our vote counts, a lot of people don't actually see it that way, but our votes actually count. And so it doesn't matter who it is, but if we actually went out and the whole entire over this whole entire country, everybody that was eligible to vote, if all the black people went out and voted, there's a difference to be made there, and that's known. Well, now that's coming under attack. They're trying to find many ways in these different states with these voting bills. They're trying to pry and make things up, where they're trying to take folks off voting rolls. You got some folks in some of these states where you got governors, that are just all about repression. And when I say you got some governors, the first one that comes to my mind is that one that's in Texas, Abbott. That governor, for the people in the state of Texas, is about as repressionist as and oppressionist as anybody I've ever seen. But what is being proven at this point is that the people of Texas are actually going against this. And what they're doing is they have actually some of these are early special elections that have taken place in Texas. They've actually voted, and they're putting Democratic folks in these Republican seats. Now that's causing alarm, and what they've done with these voting bills, because they've actually redistricted in Texas, where they basically made it to the point that there will only be 2 blacks to represent the state of Texas from the congressional perspective. And I think it's the same when I'm not sure about how that goes about the Senate, but I know that there's only 2 districts or 2 representatives that will be able to represent the state of Texas, as of what's coming up for this big election coming in November. Well, at any rate, what we have to do is we need to make sure that we're one for the people that love to vote and they love to do their civic duties. We need to be making sure that our representatives do what they're supposed to do, because a lot of people that represent us are not representing us in the way that they should. We should be making that loud noise. We should be creating that good trouble and letting it be known that these people are trying to take our voting rights. I can tell you, I'm here in Georgia, and Georgia is one of those places where Donald Trump was upset from the 2020 election when he lost that election to Joe Biden. And he said that they were cheating and all of these other wonderful things, when we know what happened in 2016 when there was a real cheat. But they counted ballots here in Georgia 5 times, came up with the same results, and they actually have this man on tape trying to steal the election. So even after that happened and they got through all of that, Georgia came up with this crazy, crazy voting bill. Okay, basically, it's causing all kind of problems, is what it does. And what they did was they actually went and they shut down some of the polling places that were in the urban areas. Shut them down, and the ones that they left open, they actually took some of the machines away. Yeah, they took some of the machines away. Now, there was that. I mean, they proved that there was no issue in the 2020 election But they still put this bill in place anyway to make voting hard for people that live in urban areas. Now, that governor, Brian Kemp, now you know, there's a lot to say about that person, because I don't know what the humane thing is to say about him. The Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, same thing. I don't know what to say about him either, because they're trying to play Two-Face or whatever have you, because they're trying to. On one hand, you want to make sure that you know that there was no cheating, but yet still you want to go with the repression. And so it shows in the representation anyway, because as you look at the state under the state house, the representation under the Gold Dome, it clearly proves, where the districts are for representation and where they aren't. But it also shows that even the ones that are there to represent the people of the lesser areas, or the people that would be considered to be under this repression, they're still not fair representation anyway. Now, what we need to be doing is we need to be starting, several gatherings, communities, kickoffs, whatever have you, just when it comes to voting rights, because we need to be letting it known that, this is what the Constitution states, but this is also my right, because I am a born American. And so I think what they're getting so mixed up about that is because they're tying Black people to everything that's lesser than white. And so in the process of doing that, it's like they're finding a way to try to keep you from voting. I'm saying to each and every individual that's listening to this part right now as we start this show, is you cannot take that laying down. You cannot let this situation get past this year, especially for the big midterm election that's coming up in November. We need to get out there. We need to be voting. We need to be voting big time. I mean, it does not matter. I'm telling you right now, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I would never have an honor to either party. But I will tell you this, I need change. I need change, and I won't change. I'm voting for everything that's got a D on it. You guys can go and you can check out my blog, Changing Trends and Times, and you will find that I have even endorsed, and I'm writing in favor of for a campaign of a gentleman that's running for governor, which is on the Democratic side. Yeah, I am. I'm actually going to. I want this change to happen, and I think we all need to be thinking about the change long term, because what has happened in this first term under this administration that's in Washington, D.C., they've already set the country back 20 years. If we don't change that House and that Senate, the U.S. House and Senate, at the midterm election coming in 2026, we probably won't actually stand a chance, and we may be a part of all the other immigrants that they're kicking out the country. That's just a possibility. I mean, I don't believe that that's the case, but anything is possible. So if that's the case, we need to be doing what we need to do. And so I'm telling you, please get out there and vote. Vote your conscience, vote your rights. If you don't feel like, that a change needs to happen, then I mean, hey, that's you. But at least you voted. Just vote. Please vote. Please vote. Now, the current concerns across the country is that there are changes to early voting rules. And that's numero uno. I can tell you now, here in Georgia, that is one of the things that I found to be more shocking than anything. Now, I'm out here in Douglas County, and the actual where I go and vote, which is a school that's right around the corner from me, But there's an early voting place, which is a senior community, which is right on the corner of where I live. They changed that. Why? Why? There's no answer to that, but they did. And instead, what has happened is that now I have to drive, if I want to early vote, I have to drive 10 to 15 miles away from home in order to early vote. But that's not going to stop me, because if I need to do that, then I will. I'm still going to vote. I will not be discouraged. I will not be stopped. And you should not be discouraged, and you should not be stopped as well. Because early voting, if we go an early vote, which actually proved to be a difference the last time, the early vote that was banked, especially in that presidential election in 2024, it was an alarming rate that caused many of these folk that don't want us to vote to have a problem. They had a problem with that. I'm telling you, early vote, and you don't have to worry about voting on the day of the election, because on the day of the election, where people like to procrastinate and wait, it's going to take you a long time. But remember, here in Georgia, nobody can bring you water. Nobody can bring you a chair. You have to sit there, and all of that long wait, which could be as much as 7 to 8 hours, maybe longer. And you just have to suffer and go through those consequences. Nobody should have to do that, but I will tell you, if you got an early vote, I'll suggest early voting. They're trying to change early voting because they're trying to say that that there's a lot of cheating, because well, you know, that came from Donald Trump. That came from Donald Trump. I mean, the one person that everybody knows has cheated. I mean, and it's known that they cheated, and they're going to continue to do as much underhanded crap as possible, and people just accept that, and nobody holds that person responsible, or those folk that actually act on his behalf. They don't hold those people responsible. But this is where we, the people, need to be more responsible, and we need to take these matters in our hands, where we make things work the way we want them to work, because we can still use what the system says right now with these rules that they got, and we can still get out there and we can do our voting for those that are eligible to vote. I'm going to suggest to you, though, anybody that's trying to do anything underhandedly, please don't do that. Please don't do that, because you know, when you try to play the same game that these folk play, I can guarantee you that, you know, anytime it comes to especially a person of color, that they have you under a microscope regardless of the case. Just go and do your voting, and let the worst let the rest fall as it may. Now they're doing restrictions on mail-in ballots. There was an enormous amount of people that were doing mail-in ballots, you know, especially those people that are in the military. And so now what we're finding is that those votes, especially from the military veterans, when they're deported abroad and they mail the ballots back, they might not make it back in time. They're sent, but they might not make it back in time, because they've screwed up the mail anyway. So now what they're doing is they're like supposed, quote unquote, when they're going through in some of these states where they're open ballots, you know, they're going and they're like coming with the smallest thing to say that a ballot is invalid. It could be because there's a scratch on the paper, and they'll call it a spoiled ballot and won't count it. And they won't count it. But I still say the best way to vote is to do that voting in person, because you don't need to worry about if your ballot is going to make it back in time. You know, a lot of states do this different, and that's why it's called the United States. So each state handle things in their own way. But I can rest assure you that even those that say that they don't have a problem when they do the mail in, I think Colorado is one of those places. They say they don't have a problem. But with them screwing up the mail system the way they have now, I would not be surprised if you start finding an enormous amount of issues when it comes to those now, because people just don't know if the ballots have even made it or if they've been counted. Just do it in person, and you know that your ballot is there. Or do you know that your vote is going to count? Now they're talking about the vote. I told you guys about the voter roll purges. Now, around this entire country, they have purged millions of people off of voter rolls. That's what I'm talking about, all 50 states. They've purged millions of people off voter rolls. So let's say, like, you're in a state where you're eligible to vote. Yeah, you're eligible to vote, but you haven't voted in maybe 6 or 7 elections. They're going to purge your name off the roll. Is that right? No, but they're going to do it. Why are you not using your civic duties, though? So 2 wrongs don't make a right. So, if you don't know if you're eligible to vote, you need to go down to your voter registration place, and you need to actually find out if your name is on the voter rolls to vote. Most people don't know, and election day is not the day to find out, where you go and give them your ID and they tell you that you can't vote. That's not a good thing. Go and vote. Find out if you're eligible to vote. We've got the midterm election coming up, and your vote matters. You might think it don't, but it does. It matters. Just think about the situation we're in right now, that we have Donald Trump to deal with, because so many people decided, and they caused so many people to not want to go and vote with the lies that they had in these campaign ads. The lies made people say, well, I don't need to vote. My vote ain't gonna count. That's not true. That is not true. You must vote. We all must vote. Now they're gonna have. I told you about the polling places that closes in certain districts, which means they took some of those away, and now they're doing ID requirements and verification changes all at the same time. Now, if you show your ID, but then there has to be a verification change. That doesn't make sense. That does not make sense. So again, this is another little small thing that they're doing in order to keep people from voting. People, we got to get out there and vote, and we got to make sure that we're making the difference that we know we're supposed to make. Because if we don't, then we're in for a long, rough, bumpy road. Because, especially if you look like me, you know that these people want to try to exterminate you as quickly as possible. So you know that if they want to exterminate you, that means that anytime they can take a right from you, or they can have anything that's going to cause you to do harm, that's going to happen. So let's avoid that. Now, how this affects everyday people, the longer lines I told you in certain neighborhoods, you know that that's definitely going to affect you, because that's only happening in urban areas. Because with them shutting down polling places, and with them taking away machines from most of these places, they're making it much easier and comfortable for people that live in white neighborhoods, but they don't vote really. They just benefit because of whiteness. That's why they benefit. But if you don't do your part, regardless of the case, then how do you know what the changes can be? That's a question I think you should ask yourself. We all should be asking ourselves that question. How do I know if I'm really making that difference? You know that you're making that difference when you do what you're supposed to do. I mean, it's not about, you trying to stay within somebody else's confines, but you know what the law states for any and everything that happens in today's society. You just need to do what you need to do. And voting is one of those things that I tell you, everybody needs to be thinking about doing that. Everybody does. And now you got confusions about where and how to vote. Again, as I was telling you, they changing precincts, shutting some down. And the ones that they shut down, people don't know where to go and vote. This is why you should, at this time right now, everyone should be going down to their voter registration office, finding out where they're supposed to vote and when early voting is supposed to kick off. Because if you're going to vote and you're also going to early vote, you want to know the places that are closest to you where you can go and vote. You need to know those places. When they reducing access for seniors, disabled voters, and working families. Okay, now this is one that's this is a kicker for me. I mean, I really don't understand how did we get here at this point. And so it's like, I think they're figuring that if you're old, and you're disabled, you don't need to vote. I mean, that's all. I'm just assuming. I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but it sounds like, when you're old, you're disabled, and you've got a family with a mother and a father and three kids and four people in the house are working, and everybody's got this different schedule, and everybody trying to find a time and a place where they're supposed to vote and they can't. I mean, all of this is like just mass confusion. But for those that understand and resonate with when I say this, you all know that this is where we have to do our due diligence. People, stop sitting down and stop waiting for things to happen when we know that things are not going to happen the way we want them to. We have to force that action. And if we're not being assertive enough to force that action and say, I'm going to vote because I know that this is my right and there is nothing that's going to change that, you know that you're registered, you're on the polls, and you've been voting for forever in your life, then why is there a problem? Why are you going to stop now? Go vote. Go and vote. I mean, you might not have the same mentality that I have. Like I said, I'm voting for everything that's got a D on it. I don't give a damn. Everything that's got a D, I'm just going to write it in. I'm just going to plug it on the machine. I'm going to plug it on that machine because I'll be damned if I let these folk destroy my life even more or try to shorten my life even more, because that's what they're doing. I'm not going to allow them to do that. You shouldn't either, because you've got a lot that you're doing right now. You've got a lot of folk that most likely rely on you. So you need to do your part. Each and every last one of you. When you see voter drives, if you guys have not registered to vote and you need to go and register to vote, find a voter drive. Because I'm sure that there's a lot of them that's kicking off all over the place. And if not, just do the simple thing. Go down to your voter registration office and vote. You can do it at the DMV. Vote. Register to vote and vote. There also, with all these things that's happened, it's increased distrust in the system. And again, as I say, this is how we wound up with Donald Trump, because everybody know that was mass confusion and the biggest mistake anybody could have ever made. Because that person is that I don't know what that is. I'm just going to tell you that is not a leader. That is not a person that a thing that cares about anything else but itself. And it's one of those things that it's like when you see people talk about a succubus. A succubus sucks all the life out you and kills you. That's a great example. So, people got to do what they got to do. But see, that mass confusion, we don't need to be having that. We need to stay on top of things from day one. We always have to be 5 and 6 times better anyway. So why not just keep doing what you're doing and continuing that excellence and that legacy that you're trying to set? Because it's you that make up the whole entire situations of not just where you live, but areas, because areas cannot thrive if they don't have Black people. Which is why I'm just wondering, and I'm going to ask this question before I get to this last part of voter about voting, is why is it that an enormous amount of us are afraid and still don't think it's a positive thing for us to create our own party? Because I think what is a very something that will change the whole entire scope of not just this country but the world. But if we actually created our own party, our own political party, and we supported our candidates 500%, I can guarantee you that everything that's happening right now in this world would cease and desist. The reason why it would cease and desist is because there's power in our unity. There's power in what we do when it comes to being innovative, creative, and building things. There's power in building community. There's power in that entrepreneurship that we have, where we're seeing an enormous amount of entrepreneurs that have come to the forefront that are like thriving and growing. Why don't we create our own party? Because I can tell you this, if we did, I'm 500% for that. I'm with that. I want that. We all have to want that, and we all have to come up with our way of actually coming together and making it come to a fruition. Stop being a part of a system that does not want us there. This system that we had that we're operating under now, that thing is not made for us to be successful. It's not made for us to be successful. It's made for us to fail. Creating our system within this system and operating makes us that much more powerful, because that's the way we change the system overall. We're not going to change the system talking about we're working within the system and we can turn it out, by turning it on its head by working inside of it. No, that's not the way that goes. And anybody that's thinking like that's the way that's going to happen, what's going to happen is you're going to become a part of that same system, and you are going to be against the things that you originally said that you wanted to do, which means that anything that's about community building for people that look like you're not going to be supportive of that, because you're going to say that it's not good. There's already proof that that happens. So let's not think in that way. Let's think about our own. We can do our own. And I'm sure that most of you that are listening to this right now know that that's a fact. You know that's a fact. But why is it that you can't build your own system or work with your own people? We gotta do better than this. We gotta do better than this. Because I'm telling you, divide and conquer, that's a powerful thing. That's a powerful thing. And it's happening now in the 21st century. It's more potent now in the 21st century than it was in the 19th century. Now you make that make sense. And the last part that I need to talk about when it comes to voting, the bigger picture here, voter rules shape who participated. So when they say voter rules, that is, you're of age, you're not a felon, and if you are a felon, if you're back into society and you've done everything you're supposed to do, then you are eligible to vote again. But again, you're of age, you're not a felon, you're voting in the area in which you live, where you're supposed to in your district. You're doing whatever it is that you're supposed to do that they tell you, other than just about the legalities of your name. You're a born citizen of America. All those good things. You know, when it comes to that, you know, if you've done all those things, or all those things are pertaining to you and you're cleared, then you should be able to vote. And participation shapes policy. So, like for those that didn't want to participate, when they were upset and Donald Trump won for president, and now you look at now that you didn't vote, if you didn't vote, you don't have a say. So if you didn't vote, you just need to shut up. You just need to shut up if you didn't vote because you don't have a say so. Because if you let your right go by, then how are you going to tell somebody else about what's right and how they should vote or why voting is not this or the other? You don't have a say. To participate, now you go and you vote. You got all the rights to say anything in the world about voting. But if you ain't voting, shut up. Stop running around here spreading those lies that these folks are giving you to go and tell people. Because they're paying folk to go around and lie. Participation is 100% where we all should be. Participate. Get out there and vote. Don't listen to these idiots that are telling you, oh, your vote don't count. You see, that negative thinking like that, I mean, a lot of people have gone through some things because of that. But it's not saying that it's right or wrong, but I just wish that, when it comes down to it, that those folk would just calm that down because we don't need to hear you. We don't need to hear you because when you had your opportunity and you let it go by. Possibly you're one of those folk that they're going to purge off the voter roll. So if you can purge off the voter roll, are you going to go and try to reinstate your rights to vote? Which you should. Go do it. Go participate. Go nilly-willy. Vote for whoever you want to. But at least you voted. But if you didn't vote, you don't have a say. Last thing is policy shapes everyday life. Healthcare, wages, education, and safety nets. So you see, this is the importance of voting. Because also when you get the candidate that you want and everything that you know that is going to be in good standing for you and it's what you want, you vote what's right for you. All these policies, all these things that folk are talking about when they run for these campaigns and so forth. We've got to do better about vetting these candidates as well because they can sell you a dream and once you elect them, they don't know you. They don't remember what they did. They don't remember what they said. And when you show them what they said, then they come up with another sugar shit lie that they tell you. So let's just do what we have to do. Go out there and vote. Do your due diligence, vet your candidate, and vote. Let's turn to this next part. Let's talk about these tariffs. Because these tariffs are economic pressure that I'm trying to figure out all these folk that voted for Donald Trump. Y'all were for Trump. Trump put these tariffs out, and we the people got to pay for the tariffs. And then those of you that don't understand economics will say, no, that ain't true. That means you don't know what the hell you was talking about in the beginning. The people are the ones that's footing the bill for the tariffs. All that money they stealing from the government, but we're paying for the tariffs. Ain't that something? We're paying for the tariffs. But that's what y'all voted for, though. All y'all that voted for him. Now y'all need to help try to find a way to get him up out of there, right? Yeah, y'all need to help with everybody else to try to help get him up out of there when you knew what you was doing in the beginning because you thought that only a particular segment of this country was going to be impacted by what he was going to do. And now what you're finding out is you too. Ain't that so? Ain't that so? And I want y'all to know that people hadn't talked about tariffs since like the 1930s. I mean, way back. And this man came back and he's done this twice now. He did it in that failed election of 2016, and he's doing it in this failed election of 2024. Wow, this is crazy. I can't believe it. And now we're actually paying tariffs. Wow. So this is what tariffs are in plain language. A tariff is a tax on imported goods, and companies often pass that cost to consumers. Let me say that one more time because I don't think a lot of you heard that. A tariff is a tax on imported goods, and companies pass that cost to consumers. Mm. Come on, Amazon. Come on, Walmart. Come on, Target. So high. These are imported goods that you have to pay for. Oh my God. This is like the craziest thing in the world. Now, when we talk about economics, I mean, somebody please send me some comments and questions here while we're on the show because I mean, I really want to know what did you think a tariff was, and did you think the tariff was going to affect you like it is right now? I really want to know because a lot of us don't do a good job at really understanding how things like this work because he came up with this whole brand new lie that they gave him to tell folk. And you know, they say he's good at marketing, which he ain't good at marketing to me. So that voodoo that he was throwing in them words that got them folk to voting for him. See, apparently, you know, you were swooned by that voodoo because that voodoo got you. But it didn't just get you, it got everybody because we're all paying for that. I didn't want that. Unequivocally, I did not want that. I never thought that was a good idea. Never. And I know an enormous amount of other people that didn't think that was a good idea either. But that didn't stop the folk that was actually following this man to the slaughterhouse. They didn't think that that was a bad idea, so they just followed anyway. Trump say he gonna do some tariffs, so I'm for Trump and the tariffs, and he killing all of us. We're all being affected by that. I mean, prices are so high on the smallest things that an enormous amount of us don't even want to buy it no more. Don't buy it. And now we're just shopping for necessities. We're not shopping because we just want to go and we just want to buy everything. We just, well, I know in my household we're buying only what we need, and we stock up an enormous amount of what we need to avoid having to go and continuously to spend money buying goods that we know should not be costing the price that they cost. Look at gas. Look at gas. Look at gas. Food, clothing, oh, and so much more. All of this is like high as the Dickens. So when you think about it, and as I read to you, that a tariff is a tax that's on imported goods. How do you know what's imported and what's not imported? That's a good question, right? Because, you know, when it says made in America, where's the manufacturing plants that are producing an enormous amount of American goods? Now, we can say that most of the fruit and vegetables that we get here in the country are from America, but there are an enormous amount of fruit and vegetables that are imported as well. So I mean, like, look at avocados. We grow avocados here, but people want the avocados that come from Mexico. So you'd rather pay that imported price than to pay for the ones that are here that you get from California. So I mean, maybe you can tell me what's the difference in the avocados, because I mean, they're what they have. There's some they call organic. Then there are the regular ones, but maybe the fertilizer that they put on the avocados in Mexico may be much better than the avocados that they fertilize in California. I mean, I don't know. Maybe somebody can tell me that difference, but I'm not big on agriculture that way. But I will say this: when it comes to eating my fruit and vegetables, I know how to look at a fruit and vegetable, and I can tell you if they're good or bad. I can tell you that. And so as I eat my share of those, I will tell you, I'm not gonna eat anything that's got pesticides all over it. Especially when you can smell the pesticides. When you smell that pesticide, you know good and well you don't want that. You know you don't want it. So this is how tariffs affect the prices. Higher prices on everyday items like electronics, clothing, groceries, appliances. Businesses face higher costs for materials, and farmers and manufacturers may face retaliation from other countries. Now, y'all just heard me read this, right? And I want you to tell me the higher prices on the everyday items like the electronics, the clothing, the groceries, and the appliances. Now, when we talk about the prices being higher for those things, we know that they're high. We know they're too high. But even though they're as high as they are we really willing to pay those prices when we know that that's not the right price? I can tell you this unequivocally, I'm not. No, I can't pay for something that I know that it shouldn't be that price, and I'm gonna pay a markup of 25, 30%. No, I'm not. No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna be willing to say, okay, well, I have no choice. No, I have a choice. I have a choice. Don't buy it. If you can't afford it, why the hell are you buying it? That really don't make sense. And then I'm still trying to get this too, because this was not on here on that list that I was reading was the cars. Do you know that there are so many people that are out buying new cars, and you cannot get a loan with good credit of less than 10% on a car loan? Now, unless you go maybe to a credit union where you've been established for a long time, you can get that rate, close to that rate that that you're used to getting. Like in this case, I can tell you that the last car I purchased, I purchased through my credit union. I had that car financed at 1%. 1%. You think I'm going to use car dealership financing, the banks that they shop you around to, because they shop you around like a million and one places, and your credit take a hit like crazy. But even now, if I went to my credit union to get another loan, I can get a car financed at 4%. That ain't bad, but I could. Do I want to pay that? No, I don't. No, I don't. It's not worth it, because I know that I have credit that should keep me where I was at 1%. Why am I going to pay you an additional 3% to finance anything? That's called discipline and structure. And that's what a lot of us need to start getting and doing. So when they talk about the businesses facing higher costs for material, So now that the places here that need certain material, and so they get it from China, they get it from Portugal, they get it from Italy, they get it from Spain. Only these are the best parts that you had been getting at this low rate that now you're paying an additional 25% to get this item because they're facing the tariff. And so since they're facing the tariff and they've got to pay that additional cost, they got to sell it to you at this additional cost, which means when they finish the product and they sell it to you, they sell it to you at 3 times that rate. 3 times. So no, you don't want that. You don't want that. That's raking you over the coals. But so many people are afraid of sacrifice. You're afraid of sacrifice and afraid of doing what's actually in your conscience to do this, to say, I'm not spending unnecessary money, that you feel like you have to do this to keep up with other folk. You don't have to do that. You do not have to do it. I tell you one thing, I will recommend this, and I don't know if it's good for a lot of folk, but it's good for me. Is if I'm not going to Costco to purchase my products, I mean that's wholesale, and buy in bulk, and it lasts. Fine with that, but I don't have to go to the store or look for things like every week, every month, unless it's just something that I'm doing that's special. Try to come up with a way of saving yourself, saving your money, and being more economical, and forget about the Joneses, because the Joneses, what they're doing, you don't know what they're doing over there in their house. They're showing you one thing and their life could be in turmoil, but they don't care. So they just keep doing that. Not a good place to follow, not a good example to follow. This is where we got to learn to set these standards for ourselves, for our kids, for our families, and for our communities. This is where I can tell you this. When I remember growing up in our community, everybody took care of everybody. Everybody took care of everybody. I was truly raised by the community. Everybody knew everybody. I mean, when you're growing up, it's just like you got this one big old family in this community. It's a whole big old family, and everybody thrived. But now we have a more serious version of divide and conquer, where we're just divided, because you feel like you're so much better than the Grants, and the Grants feel like they're so much better than the Smiths, and the Smiths feel like the Joneses just can't do anything with them. So, I mean, what's all this division about? But you all live in the same community. And see, while you got all the division going on within the community, you got folk that live outside the community that's coming in and they're chopping it off bit by bit by bit by bit. And before you know it, you got just one little block. And they've taken everything else. And you're out. Hey, Tariffs. Yeah, because now you talk about home mortgages. To finance a home, they're telling you that they're financing homes at 50 years. Who in the hell is going to buy a house at 50 years of financing? It's crazy. I don't have to tell me how that even works, because that doesn't even sound right. So it's like you got to wait a whole 50 years for your equity that's grown in your house from day one in the community you live in. You got to wait a whole almost 50 years before you can even get some equity out the house. Come on, real estate agents, y'all got to explain that. Y'all got to explain that to these new home buyers and stop selling them these bad mortgages because they're on the rise too. You see, if we're going to do what we're supposed to do, then we need to do that. That's what we need to do. We don't need to placate, talk about, oh, let me go and make this money. I need to make this money right now. So while I'm making this money, hey, I'm gonna sell them this house at this, look, it's 50 years, but I got to come up with this creative way of explaining it to make sure that they like this house because they like it. I want them to buy it. But that's a bad deal. Come on, ethics. Is ethics in the house? See, all of these things, I just want you to understand that these are things that are happening. What's contributing to that, but also where you have to make this decision as to how you want to carry on with this. Because for some people, they make it look like, okay, well, so what? I just don't need to buy anything. And I'm not saying that. You see, when you throw that out, it's like, okay, so how many people gonna follow this idea? Say, oh, you can keep that idea to yourself. That's on you. But being smart, that's what we all should be doing. And so when you talk about the farmers, the manufacturers, and how they face retaliation from other countries. Now, see, again, remember I was talking about the manufacturers earlier, right? So when it comes to manufacturing, we know that things are actually built, created, and they're supposed to be in one place or the other. So I want you to think about this. If your farmers, which they've been having some issues because the tariffs have killed them. So now you went from farmers here in America. It don't matter who you are. You went from farmers here in America to where now you're getting imported fruit and vegetables. Imported fruit and vegetables in places that you've never seen. You don't know how it's grown. You're eating imported fruit and vegetables. Fruit and vegetables where you used to be able to get a tomato for 75, 80 cents, a bell pepper for like 75, 80 cents. Where now you're paying $2.50 for a beefsteak tomato. One. A beefsteak tomato may be pretty big, but you're paying $2.50 for it. Depending upon where you go, because it could be higher. If you go to Trader Joe's, it's higher. I mean, so tell me, does it make sense to you? Imported fruit and vegetables that's costing you this much more money, but the homegrown fruit and vegetables are not good for you. I mean, I don't. I mean, somebody need to help me to make sense with that, because I don't see the logic in that. I don't see the logic in that. Which means that, for these bad policies that are in place, we're only making them bad for ourselves because we're going along with that. We're not rationalizing and making the sensibilities of what these people are trying to do because all of this is only benefiting the top 1%. They're the only ones that's benefiting. And so if you're talking about you're not going to do that, that's called hitting them in the pocket. So if you're hitting them in the pocket and they realize that people are no longer going for that, now we got a different story. See, now we got a different story. Because now that it's like, okay, the people are too smart for this. So now we've got to bring this back. And now in economics, you got to remember to get the equilibrium, you've got plenty of things that you have to do that goes into the mix in order to bring things back to equal. And if you can't bring that back, if equilibrium is off that bad, let's say if the curve is shifting way left, okay, we understand there's a problem. There's a problem. There's a problem. And so we got to do something about that. You have to do something about that. Think about it economically. So the impact on households is the increased cost of living, reduced purchasing power, and the pressure on small businesses. Now, when we know about the increased cost of living, it doesn't matter where you are. The cost of living has gone up everywhere. It's gone up everywhere. Even in the states with the lowest economies like Mississippi, the economy, I mean, the cost of living is just high. It's high. We've got to vote and get this man out of here. We got to change these laws because they know that this tariff thing is not right. You're talking about reduced purchasing power. Many people can't afford things now. So now it's time to go and grow your own garden in your backyard. Grow your own garden. You got to make sure you know how to get that land right. So when you start planting them seeds and you start growing all the fruit and vegetables, you got to make sure you protect them, especially from them squirrels, because you know them squirrels coming down out them trees for certain fruit and vegetables. They coming, they coming in droves because they coming to eat. So you got to be able to protect them. But hey, it's time to start your own. And the pressure on small businesses, an enormous amount of them are actually facing a crunch because getting clients is starting to be a problem. So the trigger down is actually starting to happen. Now that's triggering down. And so when that's going down, that means that when you try to build up, you're going to have a problem trying to sustain, which is why it's best, if you can't afford an office and you have a small business, bring it inside your home. Bring it inside your home because that still makes you viable, especially if you want to do business with the government, because you need to have a real address. So you can bring it inside your home, but you just got to remember what type of business you have and the work that you do is how you bring that clientele into your house, because you got to think about it. If you're doing anything that's dealing with finance and money, that could cause you to have to need to add on extra security, which you might not have the money to pay for. But you may have to do that if that's what you're doing, because protection means everything. And you got to protect, the goods and everything that you're working on. And so the thing is, why tariffs are a political flashpoint? Some argue tariffs protect American jobs. Others argue they raise prices and hurt consumers. The debate is ultimately about economic freedom and stability. And so when they say some argue that tariffs protect American jobs, that's a lie, because they don't. How is a tariff going to protect an American job when you're basically doing what's all about imports? It's all about imports. So I want you to think about this, because we got American companies that do this, okay? Which means they're breaking their foot off on the American people because they can start off with a product here in America. They send it abroad to get it completed. So once that finished good comes back to the US, all that pricing goes on the consumer. Okay. Now, I'm saying that to say is that they double dip. They get the credit here in America for the work and the job that they do as far as the manufacturing part. But then when that good comes back into the country, they get another credit. Another credit. So if they get to double dip, then most people would think, well, I should double dip as well. You small change. They're big dollar. You small change. That don't make sense. Again, this is about the top 1%. So just think about it. You've got to do something, or you need to make sure you're doing things that's going to benefit you. A lot of these things that are going on today are not beneficial to you. Most of you may have voted for this, but it's not beneficial to you because you're paying just as much as the next person. If you're in that top 1%, then you don't count. In this case, they're telling us that we don't count because we're not in the top 1%. But we can make ourselves count because if we are beholden to our morals and our standards and what we will do and what we won't do, that changes things. But we have to be willing to do that together as a unit. Individually, it does not work. It's the only way we're going to put a damper on this and we're going to stop this, because if we don't, God help us. You know, then they say others argue that tariffs raise prices and hurt consumers, which is true. Again, I told you they double dip. And the debate is ultimately about economic freedom and stability. Well, that can be a debate because some people say that, you know, when we talk about economic stability, that stability is primarily for that top 1%. The freedom comes from us. We want to be free from that. So if we want to be free from that, then that means that we don't have to partake by purchasing these goods. That's where it comes in. We're free to not do that. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. And if you do, then I can guarantee you, things will change. They'll change. But you see, so many folk are so used to running around and just spending money crazy and doing everything that they want to do that they don't even think about how it's affecting them from God knows how many different ways, because it's affecting them. And see, again, this is all about our freedom. Everything that I've talked about up to this point is about our freedom. Our freedom. This ain't about none of those other things. They're infringing on the freedoms and trying to force and bully you to do all of these things that you know are not right. They're bullying us. So the thing is, how are we going to act in this whole process? Now, this next issue here, this immigration and national identity, this is a big thing here. This is big. And I'm going to tell you why it's big. Is that, you know, there are a lot of immigrants that voted for Donald Trump. There are a lot of them. And Donald Trump told them that on day one, that they will have Homeland Security ready to go and start deporting. What did they do when they occupied the White House on January 20th? They started deportations. Now, I want you to make sure you understand what I'm saying to you. It may not be right. It may not be right. He said this, though. But the same people went and they voted for him. Now, see, that's what I want somebody to help me to understand. How do you vote against your own interests like that? Because that's like with the man telling you, okay, I'm giving you this example. I'm coming to your house and I am going to take your house. I'm going to put you and your family out. and I'm gonna find a. I've already found a way in which I can take this property because this property is mine. Now they tell you they're gonna do this. They pop up at your house the next week, and they're evicting you out of your own house, and you're sitting there looking like, what? This is my house. No, this is my house. I told you I was coming to get my house. Now they tell you that, and they do it. Donald Trump told them, and he did that. It's people. Why are you voting for Donald Trump? Donald Trump is telling you what he's going to do, and there's no good in that. But they did it anyway. Now, this is he's taking people to probably to some places that they don't even that's not where they're from, and they're taking these people and hold them in camps like in El Salvador and all this other kind of places. Okay, so uh, I mean, I'm trying to get some understanding because this is something I don't get this because when people start voting against their own interests, again, as I spoke of earlier, them words that he spoke, that voodoo was good. I mean, that voodoo was good because I mean, these people that went and voted for him, they voted for this. And I guess they're saying they didn't realize what they voted for. But you can't be for it and then come back and be against it. So that's like having it both ways. So I don't think you can do that either. So just to get down into this, the human side of immigration, that's families seeking safety, opportunity, or stability. And these are workings filling essential roles in agriculture, healthcare, construction, and service industries. Now, to initiate this is saying when they say families are seeking safety, opportunity, or stability, that means that they're coming from countries, that don't have those opportunities there, and they're coming here to America, as they call it, the land of the free. They're coming here in order to get those opportunities. Okay. Now, in order to get here, there are programs that they have to go under via Homeland Security. There's H-2A, there's H-2B, there's H-1B, and there are a couple of other programs that they have to do. So in that whole process, they're here. But what the public needs to understand is that under those programs, the company is responsible for these people. Now, I want you to think about, I'm telling you this because I know this to be as a matter of fact, is that under these programs, these companies have to be held responsible for these people because they sponsor the visas that get them here. So when they get here, and when those contracts are coming up towards the end, they have the opportunity to extend these people and keep them, right? Well, what you guys don't know is that how we have so many undocumented workers that are here, it doesn't matter if they're professional or blue collar workers. They're here because what they do is they just run off. They've already got family here, so they just run off. They can't find them. At least they don't look hard enough to find them, but they just run off. And so they run off and they say they can't find them, but then they go through Homeland Security and they ask for more workers. And they ask for more workers. Now, you see, when they asking for all these workers, I want you to think about it now. They're supposed to be held responsible for them. Now, when they run off and they can't find them, what they just told, oh, well, we just can't find them. Now, this is like companies like Google, Microsoft, a lot of these farmers, these big farms, they all put in this paperwork to get these migrants over here. But yet still, they put out this craziness to these people that are coming here and tell them that that the black people are trying to steal your jobs. Now, you know that's a lie because you don't know, ain't no black folk trying to run to work on no damn farm. And those that are qualified to work at places like Google and Microsoft, that's got all the qualifications, they won't hire them, but they'd rather bring in these migrants from other countries. They bring in migrants from other countries that don't have the same qualification, but they're able to get these folk on a professional level at a much cheaper rate. So at that rate, they don't mind paying that rate. But the thing is, what the American people don't understand is that they're the ones that's contributing more to the migrants that are here that are actually undocumented. They're not holding these companies responsible. Yes, and I'm telling you this firsthand because I know this to be a fact. So, I mean, instead of having people to come into the country legally like they're supposed to, this is their way in. Because when they make that deal with this person from whatever those countries come from, especially the South American countries, for the folk that are going to be doing the farming, those are migrant workers under the H-2A and the H-2B program. When they go and they get with these folk, there's an agency that's over there in these countries. There's an agency that's got this one person that's in charge of like 30, 40, 50 people. And when the farmer hires their crew, he has all 51 of them. So when they get here, and they do the farming, and they live in this migrant housing that's horrible. They live in migrant housing. And so after a while working and they've gotten so much money, then they start defecting. They start defecting. Is Homeland Security holding them responsible? No. Are they asking them some real serious questions as to how did this worker get away? No. No. Even on the professional level, though, the ones that they hire in at Google and Microsoft, they go and they defect as well. They defect. And they get to looking for them, they can't find them, so they say. Oh well, bring me another batch. Bring me another batch. Bring me another batch. You see, again, hold the companies responsible and stop holding other people responsible. I'm telling you who the responsible parties are. That's who y'all should be having your beef with, not other Americans. So the policy debates when it comes to this is that border security, pathways to citizenship, work visas, and refugee asylum processes, are the things that's what's supposed to happen. But that doesn't happen in that way. It does not happen. And it's not going to happen. This is all, again, another scam and a sham where they're continuously bringing in people. Like these people that they're deporting, this is my hand to whatever have you. I can tell you this. As many people as they're deporting, they're bringing in more people. Don't make sense, but it's true. The thing is that instead of seeing more people that are brown, they're now white. So as they get rid of this member of this group, they're bringing in more of this group. As they get rid of that group, they're bringing in more of this group. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. In the great old US of A. And again, as I say, I can tell you all this because I know this firsthand. I won't put this out on the air, but I can hold a personal conversation with any and everybody and tell you why I know that this is true. So when we talk about how immigration affects everyday Americans, they say labor shortages are surpluses, local economics, housing markets, school systems, and community demographics. Now, let me just tell you this. If you've got 11 million people that's already been here, they've been here for like 25, 30 years, and that 11 million people is undocumented. Now, if they've been here, slipped through the cracks, wink, wink, they ain't slipped through the cracks, but they're here. Why make this an issue now? Why make this an issue now? Instead of actually solving the problem and fixing the situation of the system. And again, see, this is what I'm saying to you, is that the only way we change this system is we create a system within this system and operate from the newly created system. It's the only way this changes. Because before this gets better, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. And under this administration right now that we have that's in Washington, D.C., they're going to make damn sure that they make it worse. They're going to make it so bad that it's going to take 5 presidents. 5. So that's telling you that's 20 years to correct what's happened in less than 2. 5 presidents. That's crazy, but it's true. Now, see, they talking about labor shortages or surpluses. That's not true either. You see, the thing is that you have Americans here that refuse to do a job where you pay them $3 and $5. They're not going to do that. That's from the wage perspective. When you talk about the labor, the work that they're asking to do, that's not part of the job description. That's worse than indentured servitude that's being asked. So people are not going to do that. That's not going to happen. And they talk about local economics. The contribution to local economics is true. And so again, if you've got 11 million people that's been here for over 20 years, why are you making this an issue now? This is not an issue. You see, when you manufacture lies and events, and people believe them, and you say it so much over and over again that they keep believing it, it's a problem. It creates a problem for every person that's here in the country, especially if, it's like, well, I can say what I want, and when I start screaming from the mountaintop, then that means that it must be true. Lies don't just overnight become truths. They just don't. Lies are lies. We talk about the housing markets. Talk about the school systems. Both of those have been just dummied down and just dismantled. The education system has gotten it's so horrible now that despite all of the great educators that we have, including some of the best ones I've had here on this show, they keep doing the work that they're doing because they love the work that they do, and they're trying to forge and create that difference. But in order for that difference to happen, we have to give them a real platform. We have to give them a real system to operate in and to create what they do when it comes to education and make education top notch. That's what we have to do. Because here in America, everything is about who you know, how much money they got. And so then you go and you buy up these degrees from these universities that they say are top tier, they're Ivy League. I mean, I don't know who wants to continue to fall under that kind of who wants to continue to fall under that kind of umbrella. I don't know. But that's that made up make believe fantasy, because some of those folks, you can put them against the best students from other universities, and I can guarantee you that the students from these other universities will show them up big time, big time. It's all about the truth. So the freedom conversation, immigration debates often reflect deeper questions about who belongs, who contributes, and what America stands for. All of that's flawed and all of that's a lie. Okay? Because you can't be an immigrant and say, oh, well, who belongs here and who don't. You can't be an immigrant and say who contributes and who don't, and saying what America stands for. You can't say that either way, because the evolution of the world has changed each and every last one of those thoughts. You see, this is about right and wrong. And so to scapegoat people and to use them and to use a situation against them, that's not right either. But it happens. It happens. But you know what? I'm gonna tell you. I've oh man, I'm so sorry that I'm actually, my time is almost up and I hadn't got to the part about the book bans and education restrictions. What I am going to do is, with that part, I will I'll just do a post on this, and I'll make sure, and all of you guys that are connected to me on any part of social media, that is from LinkedIn to Facebook to Instagram to X to Blue Sky. I'll do a post on the part about the book bans and education restrictions. And I would definitely love to get feedback from each and every last one of you. And so for all of you that are watching on all of our channels, um, let me just tell you this. If you have not subscribed and enabled all notifications, I would appreciate it if you would support us by subscribing and enabling all notifications, and catch all of our shows when we go live Monday through Friday, same time at 6 p.m., 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you get the opportunity, you can also, you can send your questions and comments to the show live on either of those platforms, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. But in closing, there's two things I want to do here first. Since we're in the month of February, well, we do Black History 365, but I'm going to read to you a reflection for Black History for today, and that's on Martin Luther King Jr. And it goes like this. As we honor Black History Month, it is impossible to overlook the towering legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King was not only a civil rights leader, he was a moral compass for a nation struggling to reconcile its ideal with its actions. He believed deeply in the transformative power of love, justice, and nonviolent resistance. But he also believed in truth, and he spoke it boldly, even when it made people uncomfortable. Dr. King understood that freedom is not simply the absence of chains, it is the presence of opportunity, dignity, and equality. He fought for voting rights because he knew that political power was essential to economic and social liberation. He fought for fair wages because he knew that poverty was a form of violence. He fought for education because he knew that knowledge was the gateway to empowerment. His vision was not just about integration, it was about transformation. In his final years, Dr. King spoke openly about the interrelated structure of reality, reminding us that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. That message will resonate today, whether we're discussing voting rights, economic pressure, immigration, or book bans. Dr. King's legacy calls us to stand on the side of truth, courage, and humanity. His life reminds us that freedom is a collective responsibility and that each generation must rise to protect it. Well, and having that Black History moment, I mean, that was, again, we do that 365, but I think that was a powerful reflection of Dr. King. And so this ending monologue, I want you guys to remember this as well, because this is the thing that's going to help each and every last one of us going forward. As we close tonight's conversation, I want to remind you that freedom is not guaranteed, it is not maintained, it is protected, it is nurtured by people who care enough to pay attention, speak up, and stay engaged. Whether we're talking about voting rights, economic pressure, immigration, or the freedom to learn, these issues shape the lives we live and the futures we build. They shape the opportunities our children will have. They shape the direction of our communities. Understanding these issues is not about choosing sides. It's about choosing awareness. It's about choosing empowerment. It's about choosing to be informed so you can protect what matters most. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for choosing clarity over confusion. And thank you for being a part of a community that believes in truth, dialogue, and collective uplift. This is America in Black and White. I'm Charles Zackary King. Until next time, we will see you guys. Have a great evening and have a great weekend. Thank you all.